a little, kind of a gray drizzly day here, but that's fine. That's not going to slow us down any, because this is tomorrow I think is the last day of February. I think we're almost at the end of February. Tomorrow, if not tomorrow, then soon. We are almost out of February. So we want to keep it rolling, and I'm very excited because we're kind of getting, these were the 4 pizza slice shoes that we've been working on. We've done 1 coat on every surface basically. So now I'm going to add the pizza crusts today. And I went thrifting yesterday, and there were so many pizza slice shoes. I kind of had to talk myself out of getting more pizza slice shoes because I've already got like a dozen pizza slice shoes going, and that's plenty. I find that I never really, there's no such thing as enough shoes. I think we get close to the ride, and I have friends who are like, oh, do you have a shoe for this, or do you have a shoe for that? Can you please help me out? So I don't think there's any such thing as like enough shoes. So that's kind of how I feel about it. I think as many shoes as I can get done is great. All right, let me mess with my hair a little bit. I'm never going to be like happy with it, but let me mess with it a little bit more, get it out of my face, and then we can start working on shoes. So what we've done, this is session 5 of our ongoing series of making shoes, averaging. I want to average 6 a month. And if you are doing this for your own throws and are shooting for 3 a month, that's great. Basically, I'm going to try to do roughly, I'm going to try to do 2 designs each month in multiple sessions. I'm going to do 2 designs. This month we're starting with very chill designs. We're starting with king cake shoes, which is nice and chill, and pizza slices, which is also extremely nice and chill. Those are both beautiful shoe designs that people love to have, but also, you know, we're coming off of carnival, so we don't want to stress ourselves out too bad. Oh, let me turn the dehydrator on. My cat is curled up on the rug where the dehydrator is on the floor. I don't know why I'm narrating that. I don't know why anybody needs to know that. All right, I've got my glue gun plugged in. I've got a couple little bits of trim to work with for my king cake shoes. Oh, let me finish my thought before I jump to the next one. So we're averaging, I'm trying to do 2 designs each month, and I'm going to do 3 and 3. So each month I'm shooting to do 6 shoes. It would be outstanding if I could finish these 6 in February, but it's an average. That's just kind of what we're shooting for. We're not on a strict deadline. Nothing's been like contractually, whatever. So shooting for that, but also not stressing too much. So I've got these 3 shoes here. We've done 4 sessions. This is session 5. So in the first session, we did inside, outside, let that dry. We used like a mix of bits of different toasty browns, let that dry. Session 2, we did the bottom and the sole, first coat, let it dry. Session 3, we did our top coat, clean, fresh bag of Baked with Love, did the inside, the outside, let it dry. And then the 4th session, our last session, hey baby girl, our fourth session, we did the sole, and the heel. And so now these shoes are completely covered with glitter, and now we get to trim them and put the glitter snow on them. So these glitter snow bags are not bags. These jars of glitter snow are not completely full, but they're pretty close. So that should be, I think, it depends on your thing. You can spread the king cake icing on there pretty thin, but I personally like it a little thicker. I think that's, you know, just looks a little bit more, that's to my liking, but there's no right or wrong. If you want to be a little bit more economical, a little more thrifty with it. Oh, hey baby girl. If you want to be a little thrifty with it, you can spread your king cake frosting a little thinner and stretch it. The jars are at Craft Culture, they are, one moment y'all. At Craft Culture, they are $6.75 for a 4-ounce jar. It's more expensive in other places. I pride myself that at Craft Culture we're pretty reasonable on glitter snow. Hey baby, good girl. My focus is never terrific, but when the cat is being cute, it's like all bets are off. So I've got 2 jars that are like more than half full, I would say. And so we're going to work with these. And I do have my gloves, because what's different between fake frosting and real frosting is you can use your fingers. If you frosted a cake with your fingers, I don't want to eat a cake that came out of your house. So what I'm going to do real quick is I've got some of this thin champagne gold trim. And it's subtle, but I think I like to trim an edge. You don't have to. You could probably get away with not trimming an edge. But I personally like to, so I'm gonna. I think this is probably, maybe this is enough to do all 3 shoes. Let's find out. It would be cool if I like got a yardstick and actually measured and figured it out. But it's a work in progress. We don't need to be too particular. So I've got my hot glue gun here. And it's thin enough that it probably wouldn't be a terrible idea to bust out my detail tip Surebonder, but I've got my dual temp here, so that's just what I'm gonna roll with. Everything's kind of a balance between what's convenient and what's optimal. All right, so I'm just trimming that edge. It's just kind of the same color. It doesn't add a ton of flare, but it does kind of make the edge look clean, make the edge look finished. And then I'm not going to do the top edge because I'm going to frost that. But I'm going to just carefully wind. And I dug out 3 king cake babies, but that'll be the last thing we put on here. All right. Trimming that edge. And you could, I would do it doesn't really matter because they don't technically touch. You could do frosting and then trim. I kind of think it makes sense to do the trim and then the frosting. So if you accidentally have the frosting kind of overlap into the trim, it's not a big deal. But if you were eager to get the fake frosting on there and kind of see how that was looking, I would have no judgment of that. I have very little judgment of anything in terms of your throws because in terms of you making your throws. I have a lot of judgment for people who get ugly out on the route and like hit people over throws and like steal throws from people they were intended for and children and stuff. I have a lot of judgment for that. All my judgment is saved for like actual stuff like that. All right, lower edge is trimmed. 1 down. Let's see. Yeah, this is probably enough to do the second one. And then I've got some champagne gold sequins. So for sequins, I don't typically use a hot glue gun. For sequins, I prefer to use an E6000 to lay my sequin trim. I just find that works a little better. And I think I have a little bottle of, a little mini tube of E6000. So that's probably sufficient to get that done. So I am just tracing a couple of inches of hot glue. I think the trick to hot glue is it's very tempting to take your glue gun and just kind of run a nice long line and be like, brrr, that's where I'm going to put the trim. But if you do that, I think it kind of cools off before it can actually get a grip on what it's supposed to be grabbing. So to help maximize my grip grabby, I would do a couple of inches, lay your trim. A couple more inches, lay your trim. And the more you do it, the faster you'll get. And as you get faster, you can do bigger and bigger chunks. But there's nothing wrong with doing like inch of hot glue, trim. Inch of hot glue, trim. You can always slow it down if you feel like you would like more control. But you are also making handmade throws, so you don't necessarily want to sit there and, you know, spend hours and hours and hours just doing all the little details. I mean, I do want to spend hours and hours doing all the little details, but, you know, there's a balance. All right. She's trimmed. She's trimmed. Just a nice gold trim around the bottom. And then I'm out of gold trim, but I am going to save that because you just never know, because crafting makes you a hoarder, and you just never know when you're going to need exactly, you know, a few little inches. So she's going to go back into my bin of trim. I have my trim organized. I've got a bin of like my heavy trim that I use on tambourines. That's just a different, I can't use that really thick like this. I can't use trim this thick on a shoe just because like it's hard to curve trim that you can do it, but then that's kind of, it takes a little more finesse. I think it kind of isn't as balanced of a composition. I will sometimes put a lot of very heavy trim on a shoe if I'm doing like a Marie Antoinette, if I'm doing like a this is meant to be, the choice that I'm making is over embellishment. But just for like a regular kind of shoe, I wouldn't put the thick trim on a shoe in general. But I do have a bin of like my heavy trim that I can put on tambourines, because I love to do a nice heavy trim on the sides of the tambourines. I think that looks really great. So I have a trim, I have tambourine trim in a bin, I have gimp trim in a bin. Gimp is the style of trim that has those two little scrolls that kind of come in on each other. I'm looking to see if I have, it's hard to see on the black, but this would be a gimp trim. There's Chinese gimp and there's French gimp. And I think it's just like, oh, this is really easy to see. So this is technically a gimp trim, and you can really see the little swirlies. It just makes little swirlies stacked on top of each other. And that would be gimp. And I love gimp because it hugs the curves of a shoe really nice. A shoe kind of has a lot of angles and stuff. The big flat stuff goes great around the top of a Grail, or great around the top of a Clio goblet, or awesome, super splendid, amazing around the edges of a tambourine. But for a shoe, I like a little bit thinner, and I like a little bit twistier, a little bit more huggy, curvy, huggy. All right, so I've trimmed these two with very thin champagne gold gimp. For my last one, I would do them all the same, but I've kind of run out, so I'm gonna place my sequins. And so with sequins, you just wanna make sure you don't have any like twisty bits. So like, if you look here, this is nice and flat, flowing even. Each little sequin is stacked the way it should, but we get to like right there, and y'all can see it's just a little wrong. So I'm just gonna kind of try to flip it back. I've got one sequin that flipped the wrong way, and it makes kind of a not even stack. It should look like a nice little stack of like little sequin discs. There we go. Beautiful. So make sure your piece is nice and untwisted, and if you've got any twisties, I would untwist them before you start gluing, just for your sanity. There's another spot where the sequin just flipped back from where it's supposed to be, so I'm gonna just flip her so that I'm not untangling while I'm placing. And the pros and cons of sequin trim, that's a different piece. The pros and cons, I would say, of the trim is that strong sequin trim like this, extremely economical. Great way to add sparkle without adding much to the budget of your shoe or your throw. But it is a little more finicky. So time and money, you know, everything kind of has a trade-off. So I'm gonna take a little E6000 and get it started. Pretty, pretty. E6000 does not harden as fast as hot glue, so you have a little bit more of a window on that. So I'm gonna just gently press it into the E6000. I thought I had her totally untangled, but I didn't, so you can untangle it while you're placing it. It's just annoying. So I accidentally made something a little more, the task a little more annoying for myself, but I know I didn't do it, all right, on purpose, so I'm gonna be nice to myself about it. Okay. Gold sequin trim, very pretty, very shiny, very economical, a little more aggravating to get it straight. The other thing about hot glue is like wherever you put it, that's where it's going. You can't put hot glue on your shoe, put the feather there, and then slide it around. Wherever you place it, you have committed to that. That's going pretty quick. I'm actually not bothered by the speed on this. And sequin trim comes in the flat sequins. I find that kind of lays cooperatively, but it also comes in cup sequins. So like instead of the sequin being a flat little record disc, it's kind of a little cup. And they're kind of interchangeable. That's really a matter of personal preference. I'm not going to be like, oh, never use this or always use that. Not on that. Oh, which reminds me, I'm going to crack my window because the E6000 is a little fumey. And I just don't want to, I want it to make sure my space is well ventilated. If you're using E6000, your space should be well ventilated. And I think there's people who even put on like the full respirator and stuff when they do E6000, and I think my space is really well ventilated. I have a good amount of airflow in here, but I'm not a professional fume advisor. So you do you, I guess, is what I'm getting at. All right, pressing, just going all the way around. Got this little bit left to do, and then we can frost these cuties, and that will be very exciting. If you've never worked with glitter snow, it kind of feels like Cool Whip. It has that texture, that sort of fluffy, it's very airy, not heavy at all. I used to do all my king cakes with silicone caulking, which definitely works and is cheaper probably than glitter snow, because I think just you get more in a, do I have any silicone caulking tubes? I probably have some, because I do occasionally still use it, like if I need chocolate frosting or brown silicone caulking. You can mix paint into your glitter snow. You want to be careful not to mix too much, because then it'll kind of get runny, because paint is like sort of liquidy and glitter snow is sort of not foamy exactly, but like a whipped texture. So if you mix too much paint into it, it kind of deflates it. It makes it runny, but you can put a little bit in there. So if you're doing like a little pink frosting for a birthday cake, or I use it for, we use it at the shop in our Tex-Mex kit. It's glitter snow mixed with a little bit of yellow to make queso dip and a little bit of green to make like a guacamole. All right, let me glue her down and check that she's kind of laying where I want her, because E6000 does slide around a little. All right, let me gently. My scissors are so toast. I'm sorry, guys. I know you're ready to retire, and I'm making you, like, keep working. All right. All right, so I am gonna probably, I try to line up my edges as best I can, but I'm also not gonna lose a ton of sleep over it being perfect. I'm usually just gonna put a little jewel, a little rhinestone or a cabochon right on the join to kind of cover it. All right, so y'all can see, it's better, you can really see it looking at that angle, but she's got a nice sequin trim along her edge. Pretty, it's catching the sunlight pretty nice. So just gonna check, see if there's any loose spots or anything that I wanted to scooch, because you wanna scooch it. You can't, once it sets up, you can't do the scooching. So the scooching has to occur while the E6000 is still a little sticky. But she looks good, I'm happy with that. Nice clean edge, nice, to my eyes, plenty well executed curve. So she's got trim, see, she's got sequin, both are beautiful. I'm gonna set her aside and start with my hot glue girls, because she will take a little bit longer to kind of set up all the way. I'm gonna scooch my gun over here. And I actually might, while I'm letting that set up, what I'm gonna do, I think, is put the crusts on my last couple of pizza slices. So we're switching gears. So in the last video that we did where we did fake crusts, I had like all this like upholstery rope. I'm saying like a lot today. Sorry, y'all, I'm tired. Bear with me, please. So I used a bunch of this like upholstery rope. I had that left over from my late mother's sewing supplies. So I was like, that looks like pizza crust. I'm gonna go with that. But I was like, ooh, I did like 3 of them in the video last time, and this is probably enough to do the 4 that we're working on. But I was like, I have a bunch of these and I need more rope. And I also kind of don't want to tell people like, oh, dig in your stash for upholstery rope. I'm trying to be helpful. I'm trying to provide guidance. And I realized I have a ton, and all muses presumably have a ton of rope in their homes. If you save your old belts, so I've got like a bunch of these in my closet with all my muses togas. This is the belt that we belt our togas with. So I've got a ton of this rope, so I'm going to switch over to this. I'm very excited about that. I love it when I love it when I have something in-house that is just what I need. I just needed to repurpose it a little bit. So I'm going to put some hot glue on the edge there. I have my tape if I need it. I'm going to see if I can get away with using not as much tape this time. So this has got, usually I say assemble and then glitter, because if you glitter two surfaces and try to glue them together, they aren't going to stick to each other as effectively. But this is kind of, I'm saying put a first coat of glitter on everything because this kind of has some nooks and crannies that are going to be a little difficult. So if gluing it and then glittering it is going to be extremely arduous, then do the pieces separate, do the glitter first and then glue them together and just kind of hope for the best. But if you can glue to assemble then glitter, that's the move. But if you can't, that's fine. So I'm going to place this. And because I did a first coat of glitter, if there's a spot that I miss when I come in and do my second coat, it won't really show. I might have some spots where I didn't get a full 2 coats of glitter on every little square millimeter, but it'll work just fine. So I am going to have to glitter this gold, of course. I glittered my gold rope with my gold glitter as well, so it's not like that's hurting you any. It's maybe confusing because the rope is silver and the shoe is silver, and we're turning the rope gold in that part. Doesn't that look so cute? And I've got, like, this is like over a yard. And I was silly. I was like, oh my God, free rope. And I mean, I know it's not free. I know it's included in our dues, but you know, it's like when you get on the airplane and you're like, ooh, free cookies, even though you paid for the cookies. You know, it's the little things. All right, so I've got it to where I want it. Uh-oh, Fanny, the rope is swinging and Fanny has spotted it. Hey, girly. Sorry to like narrate all these things you can't see. I just figure that I am reacting to them and I don't want y'all to think I'm just seeing ghosts. All right, I put the glue there. I'm gonna cut it. And it is still hard to cut this rope. But my scissors are almost toast anyway, so be careful with hot glue. I don't feel hot glue in my fingers, but I know most people do. So be careful. Please don't burn yourself with hot glue. All right. Ha ha ha. I'm very pleased with that. I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue because I don't want the rope to sit and have gaps, because then that's not going to look correct. If you see like the light showing through the pizza crust, that's going to feel wrong. So in spots where I can kind of see the rope not sitting because the rope is, it's got kind of a curved edge, so it's not going to sit flat. If you're putting a curved edge against a flat thing, it's going to like, if the shoe is flat and the rope has that curve in it, you're going to have little gaps. So I'm just filling in the little gaps. And I'm filling it in on the less obtrusive side. I don't want to fill them in down here and have like this seam underneath my crust. All right, so that is ready. 1 coat of silver, 1 coat of silver, 1 coat of gold, and then here we're doing the crust. So that's where we are so far. And I can, if I have time today, I can glitter this. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. We'll see kind of where we're at, because it's, yeah, we're like 20. Let me go ahead and do the rest of these real quick. I mean, not rushing, but not dawdling, shall we say. Y'all cannot imagine how excited I was when I realized that the rope belt was going to be pizza crust. I love it. I was having a conversation with a friend about like sustainability in Mardi Gras and how important that is to us. And like, it's a very interesting moment culturally where some people still really want to catch a lot. And if you want to catch a lot, then catching a lot is going to mean a lot of plastic beads. And some people feel really strongly about the plastic and kind of would like to see more quality, less quantity. The problem is like we're entering into my mind, and this is this is just my kind of perspective on it. But to my mind, the problem is we're entering into an era where we have more and more of these like really fabulous throws, these like handmade things, you know, that are works of art, that are little pieces of the rider's soul. So we're entering into an era where we have more of that. I have reached the end and I'm just sticking the hot glue gun between the twists of the rope to help it not unravel when I cut it. So we're entering into this era, I think, where we have more and more of these fabulous throws, handmade things and like really useful stuff, you know, things that are actually functional, not just plastic beads. But we've started, I think, to make that transition into a more sustainable Mardi Gras, a more kind of where we have less, but we cherish it and it's a little more precious. You know, one strand of glass beads from a parade rather than buckets and buckets of. But we still are, I think, holding on to that kind of old mindset of like, oh, it needs to be generous. It needs to be like, I need to go home. I need to be able to like go home from a parade with a bag that I can't even carry. And I think that's just a transition. I think that's just cultural shifts don't happen overnight. So my hope is that people kind of adjust their expectations. I don't really go to parades really envisioning catching a lot. I sort of sit far back. I like to kind of watch it. I like to kind of experience it. I love to see my friends, but I mean, that's my favorite, seeing my people out there. But I like to, you know, blow kisses and say hi. I'm not really that interested in, despite throws being extremely important to me, despite the culture of handmade things being like one of the most important things in my life, I personally don't feel the need to catch a lot during the parade. If I do, that's great, but I really enjoy seeing throws. I love like scrolling through Instagram and seeing the things that people have made, but I don't feel a lot of like drive to like possess that. I'm happy enough to have seen it and experienced it and like have the picture of it in my mind, and kind of, I like to look at what everyone's done and kind of like absorb that so that it impacts my art. That to me is, I love seeing stuff in person. Like if somebody brings it to show it to me, I like to kind of like, you know, twist it around and see, ooh, look at this, ooh, look at this. Because I do think what's cool about shoes is that I know they get displayed, but I think the best way to experience, a shoe is a three-dimensional thing. So it's not like you can take a picture of a painting. I know that that's not you don't experience a painting in the same way seeing it in person versus seeing a picture, but a photograph of a painting sort of represents the painting in a way that a photograph of a glitter shoe never can. I mean, I've seen some very talented photographers do glitter shoes and do a nice job of it, but I think the real way to experience a shoe is to turn it around and look at all its angles and like see the glitter sparkle in the light and everything. So I do love to see throws. I love to experience a throw, if not necessarily, I don't feel a huge drive to like go out and catch during the parade. And I've been very fortunate that people have gifted me things and I have done some swaps here and there. And, you know, I love that too. But my point is, I personally don't go to a parade envisioning catching a lot, because I would rather kind of focus on the experience, and I feel like I can see the float better further away. I feel like I can relax if I get a little claustrophobic if we press up on the floats too hard. So that's just me, and I have no judgment of like thrill of the hunt, let me get a lot of throws. I'm definitely not like thinking I'm above that. But I do think we're in a time of cultural shift, and shifts take time. So my hope is that we will see increasing steps towards sustainability. And in the meantime, I think it's important to work on handmade throws, because I think that helps. I think the harder we all work to make objects of beauty that are precious, that are cherishable, that are to be kept and loved forever, I think the more we help that shift happen and the more we protect this new phase of our culture. And I love to, in my shoes specifically, like upcycle things. And like I was talking to this friend about how we use empty craft culture jars to make the boil pots for our crawfish boil shoes. And like, that's everything we can do to reduce waste is a step. Every little bit, I think, counts. So that's it's a little pie in the sky, maybe a little bit optimistic, but that's how I feel about it. I feel like what we're doing, I don't think it's just crafting. I don't think it's just glitter. Not that any crafting is to be diminished in that way, but I think what we do matters. I think when we sit in our craft rooms all over the city, all over the world, all over the country, we are doing something. We are taking little baby steps towards ushering in a better era of how we celebrate Carnival. So that's what I like to think about. And I know there's a lot of like discourse around like, oh, this parade was, you know, the who throws more generously, we can all lift each other up. Nobody needs to be saying, ooh, my crew throws better than your crew. In my opinion, I think I have love and respect for anyone who's hand making throws. All right. So I don't personally feel the need to get too worked up about. People are going to have their opinions and they're going to go online and share those opinions, and that is certainly their right, but I'm not super interested in engaging with it. Me, myself, personally. All right, we've got 1, 2, last one. We're making good time. We're killing it. I'm so excited about this. I'm so excited about using the rope to make pizza crusts. And I know some muses throw their, or donate or don't keep their costumes. We keep our costumes in this house because every once in a while I think it's fun to let my boys put on my muse's toga and my muse's wig and, you know, running around the house pretending to be shoe fairies. I love that. I think dress up is very fun and that is a great skill to cultivate. Because wigs are not always super comfy, so it's great to get used to wearing a wig in this town. All right, almost there. I'm just, what I'm doing, it's hard to tell, but I am sticking the nozzle in between the twists of the rope so that it has something to grip onto so it doesn't unravel when I cut it. All right, 1, 2, 3, this is number 4, and then we'll put some frosting, and then that's probably good for today. There are things we could work on as we get further. When you start out, session 1 is like one coat, now we're done, now what? As you get further into like your pipeline, now today I can frost these king cakes, I can glitter these crusts, and I can continue to work on my toppings, because y'all will perhaps remember in the last session we glittered one side of our sheets of craft foam that are going to be pepperoni, and you can see this is where I gripped it, and this is, can you see I want to show the glitter. So we glittered one side. I want to do the other side, even though when you place your pepperonis and your onions and your bell peppers, just pepperoni and green and bell peppers actually. You could also do the same process with white glitter and white craft foam and add some onions, and that looks fantastic. But I'm trying to like manage my own workflow. I could put 92 different types of toppings on my pizza slices, but then I'll be doing nothing but that. So if you want onions on your pizza, if you want mushrooms, if you want pineapple or ham or whatever you want to put, or sausage, whatever you want to put on your pizza, I love that for you. I personally am going to call it with just green onions and pepperonis. I mean, green pepper and pepperoni. So we could work on those a little bit, because those are going to need, I like to glitter both sides, then cut them out, then, that's a little bit wonky. I'm going to let that cool off a little bit and then try to clean it up a smidge. I just globbed too much hot glue on there, which, you know, not the worst sin any crafter has ever committed, but I would like it to lay a little flat. So I'm going to let it cool off enough that I can press it, but please don't do this unless you're certain of your own level of heat tolerance. Okay, that's better. That's pressed down. It needs to be glittered over because it's kind of ugly, but all right. So just like that. And look, we've still got so much rope. We've still got so much. Yes, it's the little things. You got to celebrate your little victories. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I know I'm shooting for about 3 of each design, but these were, I just did 2 pairs of these because they kind of went matchy-matchy. All right, so these are going to be our pizza slices, but for now, let's frost some king cake. But yeah, as you get further into it, you start having more kind of like steps to manage, and that's good. It's good to kind of have your options available. Let me get this workspace cleaned up a little bit. I need to get some more big slice. I like these big pieces of paper because it kind of, I can make a little pile of them and work on that, and keeps my space a little tidier. All right. All right, she's good. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 king cakes. All right. So I'm going to get some gloves on. I've got a disposable spoon from Chinese takeout order. So if I need a little help getting into the jar, I've got a little help getting into the jar. But now we're just gonna go ahead and, I already gave these a pretty good brushing, but for the purposes of demonstration, I can absolutely, I say that, but I don't see my archaeologist brush. Whew, where did you go, archaeologist brush? We can make it work with something else, but I do kind of wonder where I put my archaeologist brush. Oh, there it is. It just fell. And I'm going to unplug my hot glue gun because I'm not doing any more hot glue at the moment. All right, she's a unplugged hot glue gun over there, archaeologist brush. Let's go. I'm going to grab a piece of scrap paper to catch my little bits. All right. So I have already given these a pretty good brushing, so they're not going to yield much, but people ask me, how do you seal your shoes? I don't seal my shoes, but I do this. I give them a really vigorous brushing. If it's loose, I want it to come off in my craft room and not in the bag. And that to me is a good middle ground between giving someone a piece of art that isn't going to just glitter everywhere in their home. Just a little bit of it. It's just going to slightly glitter up their home. All right. So a good brushing, some tapping to shake all the loose off, but y'all can see that's pretty, I'm brushing it pretty hard and I'm not getting much off of there. So the Mod Podge Aleene's combo is gripping it real good. Every time I tap the shoe, I can feel my cat, who's down here on the rug, I can feel her give a little, the heck is that? Just a little shrug. I'm sorry, honey. I'm almost done. She's got the owl ears. She doesn't like the noise. Mad about everything, but also not like leaving. So, all right. So that's not a ton of glitter, but goes into my especial. And now we can frost. And this is going to be a little weird. I'm going to frost these at kind of a weird angle. All right. Here we go. So I'm going to spread this. Now I'm making the king cake happen. And I said this last video, but I want to repeat it every time I work on the king cake shoes because it's so important. This frosting, fake frosting, do not put your sugar or your sprinkles onto this. This is there to make it look like frosting, but it does not have any adhesive capacity. This is not going to hold anything. This is just for decoration. She is built to give you the look. She is not going to do any other work besides that. She is a fashion model. She is not a construction worker. It's like the Barbie movie. This Ken's job is beach. This frosting, this glitter snow's job is just texture. It is not glue. All right. So I'm kind of carefully, but I mean, you don't have to be too careful. I'm sure we've all seen the videos where they really slap some frosting on those king cakes. And I know I tell the story every single time I make king cake shoes, but I think of it every time I make king cake shoes because I think it's so cute. When he was really little, I cut Tommy a slice of king cake, and he said, I want a slice with many, many white, because he wanted a lot of frosting on his slice of king cake, but he didn't have the words for that yet. Oh, and now he's getting so big. Babies do not keep, nor should they, but I can't believe how big my boys are already. But that's a topic that's not a topic for right now. Okay. So I'm kind of making the ring of frosting. And I probably could squeeze 3 shoes out of one. I probably could do that because I still got some in there, and but I do want it to be kind of thick and kind of generous. So your mileage may vary, but I'm going to do 2 jars for 3 shoes. That I think is a good ratio from my perspective. And I might need to switch into some clean gloves, but we'll see. And I've got the spoon here if I need help digging the frosting out of the jar, but I'm doing okay with just my gloved fingers. And you can see I'm kind of like patting it on there. It gets, as you go, it gets a little messier. All right. She's pretty cleaned out, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. Yeah, I could spread what I have a little thinner and make it enough to stretch the shoes, but I think I am going to dig into this second jar just a bit. But this is what I'm talking about. You could call it here and be fine. It would be a little on the thinner side, so I do want to kind of glop a little more on there. And you may have some spots where you get frosting on the glitter part and where you did not want it. Just let it dry and then glitter on top of it. No problem with that. And if that happens, I'll show y'all. I'm trying not to, but it does happen. So we are not going to stress over stray frosting. See, that went a little lower than I would ideally like, but that's kind of how they are trying to make a lot of king cakes in a short season in the king cake bakeries. So we are not going to get too precious. But you can see there a tiny little bit. It kind of overlapped onto my trim. So that's kind of why I trim first. A little bit of frosting flopping onto the trim. I just like that better. If I frosted and I had the frosting drip down that far, migrate down that far, it would be harder to make the trim lie flat on top of it. All right. I really got it. And I will say, speaking of reduce, reuse, speaking of upcycling and sustainability, I saved an empty glitter snow container to make a little jar of peanut butter when I did my Velvet Elvis shoe. So think about that. I think it looks funny. It looks like a little carton, a little canister of something. You don't need to save absolutely everything from your craft room, but I'm not going to judge you if you do. All right. So those are actually looking really good already. She's a little sparse. She looks good. But I am going to go ahead and add a little bit more from my set. My first jar, I really killed it. I really got every little bit off of her. So I'm going to switch into some fresh gloves. I'm not going to save this canister, though I could if I wanted to make another jar of peanut butter. But I'm going to switch to a fresh pair of gloves, and I'm going to switch to my new I like my gloves to fit really tightly so that I have good dexterity, but when you take a pair of gloves off and then try to put a fresh one on, and your hands are just a little bit damp. Very annoying. This is what y'all are here for, huh? To watch me struggle with gloves. Let's just really, okay. Good to go. And I've talked before about how I like the black ones because they make me feel kind of like a badass. All right, she's actually probably pretty good. I'm pretty happy with her frosting level. I'm going to set her aside and see where we land. She's probably pretty good. She's got a few, you know, there are a few spots there where you can see the gold coming through. And so I'm probably going to apply a little more on top of her. But on this side, she looks pretty good and pretty thick. She's just a little thin. I need to bring her down just a little bit. So I'm not going to use this whole jar. So for 3 shoes, I had a 3/4 empty jar, and I'm popping into a new one. Come on. Struggling into gloves and struggling into jars. This is the content I'm here to make. Alrighty. So let me spread her a little bit further down, a little bit more. You don't want to spread the frosting all the way to the bottom because then you kind of lose that king cakey. You want to see the king cake and the frosting. You want to see the gold glitter on the shoe. You don't want the oval to be completely lost and completely frosted. You could do, I mean, if you were doing like a birthday cake or something, then you could take the frosting all the way down. But I think it's better if you see a little of the king cake kind of at work. And as I get to a place where I'm happy with the amount, I'm going to start kind of swirling it a little to kind of put a little texture in there. And you can even kind of do this to give it some kind of fun texture. But I definitely want it swirly. I want it to look sort of, that makes it look really pretty and just really like thick and generous and luxurious. Whereas if you kind of do it straight, it just looks a little bit less pretty. So I'm going to do some kind of swirlies in there, kind of build a little bit of texture in. And I'll say this, don't press down into it too hard when you're adding the texture. Just keep your gloved finger kind of light towards the top. You don't want to smush it down so much that you start to see the shoe through it. You just want to add a little bit of whipped texture all around. I love her. She's already so pretty. And she's going to get her purple, green, and gold sugar and be just gorge. So I'm making sure that I want a little bit more to the tip. There we go. There we go. And I mentioned liking a rounded toe shoe because I think it looks more like the oval of a king cake. She's a little bit pointier, so I'm kind of doing a hybrid. She's like half oval king cake, half pointy shoe. I love her. All right, let's check out our other girls. But no, I do think you could do it with 1 jar of glitter snow. But in general, my philosophy is kind of, I want to be efficient. I don't want to waste money. I don't want to waste supplies. But I also kind of, if I'm not sure if I need 1 or 2, my tendency is to get 2 because I really hate to be near the end of the project and run out. But your mileage may vary. And I feel like when I have the plan B, when I have the extra, when I have the backup, like in my craft room, my plans just seem to work out a little better in a kind of Murphy's Law sort of way. So I went pretty far down onto the toe here. That's all right. So I'm swirling her a little bit, putting a little bit of that texture in there, making sure it's mostly even, making sure I don't have any spots where the shoe is showing through. Okie dokie. And making sure it kind of comes up around the edge of the shoe a little bit, but not too much. Because I don't finish this edge because it's frosted, so I want to make sure it's covered up And let me check my first one and make sure I did a good job on that. These are things that aren't like essential, but since I've got the glitter snow to work with, I might as well do it real pretty. Pretty, pretty. And her edge is not really a problem, but I'm going to go ahead and just with a little scoop on my finger kind of make that edge just a little bit more covered up. I don't want to see the seam. I want to see All right, beautiful. All right, last one. And the nice thing about glitter snow is if you put those swirls and peaks in, they're not going to collapse. They're going to stay. It holds its shape real nice. All right, a little bit more on her, and then we're done with our frosting. And so, as I said, the glitter snow does not, I'm not going to put sugar or sprinkles or anything on top of this because she is not going to hold it. Do not hand it to her. She is just going to drop it. What I am going to do is let her completely dry, and then you can either Mod Podge and add your other stuff, or what I prefer to do is iridescent white paint. It's exciting to see them kind of take their shape. A good base coat is important, but the embellishment portion is exciting, where you start to really convert them into little sculptures. And I've made so many king cake shoes, but I still enjoy it a lot. Just like I still enjoy king cake. I feel like I did not get a long enough season to eat enough king cake this year. Womp womp. Okie dokie. Let me just follow the lines of that. Alrighty. She's all good to go. I've still got like a half jar of glitter snow here, so I'm obviously gonna save that for something. We'll see what. But I think you could get it done with a jar, but I'm happy that I had 2 to work with. So it's the jar is $6.75, so like that's $3 worth of peace of mind for sure for me. But you do you, because your throws are yours to decide how you gift them and how you do them. All right, so I've got 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna leave these on my desk and my craft bench and let them firm up while I go get some other things done. And I am very pleased with today's progress. This was a really productive hour. We got crusts on our pizzas. We got frosting. I'm just fiddling now. This is not necessary. My husband calls it futzing. He's like, stop futzing with it. Leave it alone. But I gotta be me. So we got these girls frosted. So we got 3 king cake shoes textured. When this dries, probably tonight or tomorrow, we'll be ready to add the sugar and the white iridescent paint on top of those. And then I do like to give it a glaze, and then glue on, and they do need to be lettered. So I will probably make some transfers, and that will be the first transfers that we make for this session of this project. I'm probably going to do like a dark brown. I'll get to this, but I'll do like a dark brown because I think it looks like a cinnamon swirl inside the shoe. You don't really have room anywhere to put it except inside the shoe, and the inside of the shoe is pretty just open. So I'm going to make some brown muses transfers, and I always try to do a swirly script because I think it's pretty, but I'm going to do a super swirly cinnamon roll vibe. So we did the crusts on 4 slices of pizza shoes, and then we did the frosting on these 4. So we are trucking along. So far, so good. So far, keeping on a good schedule. And we started with some light shoes to kind of keep it light, but so far, so good. I'm feeling great about it. I'm feeling like we're going from February into March in a good place. So thank you all. As always, thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for kind of following along. If you're following along, and if you're just vibing, that's great too. So I hope everyone has an amazing weekend. I hope everybody gets everything done that they want to get done within reason. Be nice to yourself, and I will see you guys in the next session.